All right, guys. By the way, what up, Scorp? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know, my name's Conscience, and I've been doing music for well over 16, 17 years. Recording, rapping, poetry, singing, writing music, etc., producing. And without getting into too much details, today's episode is going to be about auto-tune. It's funny because a lot of people probably don't think auto-tune is as essential as I think it is. Just as a quick backstory, about 2 years ago, I'm just turning off my live. About 2 years ago, I was in a really unique space with my music where at the time, up until this point, I had always been doing rapping. And I had been trying to master various cadences of rap. And I would sing as best as I could, but I always called it like a 50 Cent level of singing, where I sing good enough where you feel comfortable enough to sing along, but nothing that'll blow you away. Kind of like sidewalk whistle singing, so to speak. So I always had decent tone when it came to singing, but I really only sang if the song called for it. As I got older with my recording, I sang more. So as far as my music career, I really didn't start like kind of singing very regularly till about the latter part of the last like 5 years. As far as like consistently trying to sing. Now, this was all without auto-tune. This was just natural. Whatever I could record into my DAW, I was putting some reverb on it, no tuning at all, just, kind of Nate Dogging my way through the singing. And when when my wife was pregnant with Miles, I remember learning in the engineering process of, sound recording and engineering about auto-tuning. And it was one of the craziest times for me because I learned that with auto-tune, you can actually, and by the way, my webcam's on now, hun. You can actually have several different plugins that can create auto-tune. It's not just one plugin. And the important thing about that is there were different ways to use auto-tune, and it kind of demystified this big algorithm notion with auto-tune where you still got to be able to sing and all this stuff. When I started slowly learning that there's multiple auto-tunes out there, there's cheap ones that you could get access to pretty much overnight. They're not that hard to actually use. I took my stab at it because even at that point in time, I had sang mostly natural, but I had learned that auto-tune can tune you more naturally. So I started off messing with Waves Tune because it was $30. It's the cheapest auto-tune on the market aside from stock DAW tuning. And I fell in love with it immediately because what it immediately allowed me to do was sing. And I could actually sing better because I was able to try, because it was assisting me in the tuning process, I could go for bigger and better things. And what I realized is that that was perfect for the climate I was in at the time, because a lot of people were doing auto-tune and they weren't really using it for the sake of doing natural pitch correction. That had kind of been in the industry for a long time, but the people in the hip-hop space were using it more for that robotic electronic character, that kind of mutant voice character. And so I had the freedom to really just sing my heart out, as well as like just think about music differently now that I had another new tool that almost formed like an additional instrument in the compositional piece. And so I just kind of went crazy on it. My first like debut album that I owned the masters to, The Sound of My Silence, dropped I think 2 years ago now. And that was using Waves Tune. Now, during the time I was studying a lot of engineering, I was a fresh fish out of the water as far as really starting to do deliberate practice in my engineering and learning about plugins and learning about compression, EQing, dynamics, mastering, etc. And it took about a year to really kind of solidify in my mind what from top to bottom a mix was supposed to look like. And my world was completely opened up to me because I, for the first time, learned about plugins. You know, I always pictured expensive studios with big hardware in them, but now getting into the world of electronic plugins really opened my eyes. I'm not really going to go too much deeper into that story other than to say that at that time, I started using Auto-Tune for about a year. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but WavesTune was one of the most generic Auto-Tunes in the industry, hence why it's the cheapest. And when you're using Auto-Tune, they all come with an algorithmic, that's a math equation-based if-then situation for determining the texture of how it's going to tune the vocal, the speed at which it's going to tune the vocal, and like I said, the texture and character that it's going to give the vocal. And also, depending on the strength of the algorithm, determined how well it tuned and how it tuned. So what you'll notice really quickly is some of the major players in the game for auto-tuning. You have WavesTune. You have Vocal Synth 2. You have Antares Auto-Tune. You have Melodyne. And then you have the barometer of stock tuning that comes with everything from Reaper to Studio One to Logic to Pro Tools to Fruity Loops. They all have some sort of stock tuner. And what you'll notice really quickly if you're paying attention is if it's stock and it comes with your DAW, the cheaper your DAW, the more likely your stock auto-tune is going to have some different materialistic flaws within it that limit the type of sound you want to achieve. The more expensive the DAW, such as when you go into Logic and into Pro Tools or higher versions of FL and stuff like that, the algorithms are much better and you get smoother auto-tunes and richer character and texture on the auto-tuning. And that's really important to understand because at first when you dabble into auto-tune, it's probably going to start out extremely experimental. You don't really care about the texture. You have no frame of reference to know what the texture of this auto-tune sounds like next to the next auto-tune. You're just experimenting. But over time, you're going to want to dial in a certain signature in sound and character to your auto-tune. And that's where it starts to get important because now certain auto-tunes will do specific things to give you your result. And it doesn't matter how good you are with your auto-tune, there are certain auto-tune plugins that will not give you your achieved desired result as far as texture and quality of auto-tune, as well as speed and all that stuff. So what I'm going to walk you guys through today, and just to add to that conversation of quality of auto-tune, WavesTune and these stock tuners aren't bad. They just lack the full spectrum of control you can have when it comes to achieving certain things in your recordings. And I'm going to show you examples of this today. Similarly, as when you move up in DAW, the algorithms get juicier and richer and better for the auto-tunes. Similarly, some of the plugins that aren't DAW specific, some of the more universal plugins like a WavesTune, like a Ovox, like a Vocal Synth 2, like a Antares Auto-Tune, when you get to these separate plugins that they're not made by the stock company and you have an entire company dedicated to that auto-tune, you get more functionality and you tend to get a more signature, richer sound. So now it's not just tuning, but it's tuning with character. And the more expensive the plugin, the more flexible capability that you tend to have. Now, the only nuanced preference difference that has nothing to do with necessarily the type is when you start to natural tune versus exotically tune your vocals. That is the more dreamier, fluid, pillowy auto-tune versus your more just straight pitch correction vocal changing. So It works in a spectrum. I would say if you want to kind of get the best of both worlds at an entry level and you want to move beyond a stock auto tune, you definitely want to go with Waves Tune at an entry level. There's several artists that use this auto tune, ranging from Lil Uzi Vert to Young Thug to Akon. There's a lot of artists in the game that use either of the suite plugins inside of Waves Tune, and it's normally $30 of a plugin. That's the best entry level auto tune you can get. Once you graduate from that point, then you start moving into your Ovox, your Antares Auto Tunes, your Vocal Synth 2, where Antares entry level is 100, then 200, then 300, then 400, then 500. They have different categories of their plugin that upgrade, and each time you upgrade the plugin, it gives you more capability, but it's all the same algorithm. It's just how much control you have over what the algorithm is doing. But I think Vocal Synth 2 is coming in at $50 on sale. Your Ovox is coming in somewhere around $50 when you're on sale, 40 to 60. And then you have your Antares Auto Tune, like I said, $100 to $500. Melodyne typically is coming in at the $300 range. I do believe there's a $100 to $200 entry-level Melodyne. Melodyne's going to be your more natural, but it can get euphoric, but it's mostly used by professional singers. Antares Auto Tune is used by mostly your Travis Scotts, your more pop, euphoric type of singers. Vocal Synth 2 is kind of a middle-of-the-road plugin. You can get both natural and euphoric. Waves Tune is mostly natural, but and it can go into euphoric, but it's more of the older algorithm, the T-Pain type auto-tune, and less of the euphoric stuff. So we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty real soon here, but what I want to do is kind of break up my big speech talk here. What we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through the different types of auto-tune that you might hear in a song, because I have done my fair share of experimenting. So what we're going to do here is listen to the verse or chorus. I'm just going to grab snippets. I've taken 6 songs of mine, which has 6 songs of mine which have different types of auto-tune and different types of character within the auto-tune. And just to go back to my personal story, you know, I started off with the stock tuning in Reaper, which is the DAW that I use. Then I graduated to Waves Tune. I used Waves Tune for about a year, and then I eventually moved into messing with Vocal Synth 2, Ovox, and Antares. And my home base, so to speak, now is Antares. However, there are certain things, again, that Antares Auto-Tune can't do that I do have to refer to Waves Tune or Vocal Synth or Ovox at some point in time to achieve. So I'm mostly living in the Antares realm because specifically I'm going for that euphoric type of tuning, that dreamy, pillowy auto-tune with that specific algorithm that Antares creates such a signature to. But there are circumstantial cases where I go back, and we're going to do some fun stuff on my stream right now with showing you guys the full spectrum. So first I'm going to show you guys an example of the older algorithm. This is by older algorithm, I just mean we're talking plugins of auto-tune that utilize an older mathematical equation for achieving auto-tune. So this is my song Learn Love off of my album Rem, and this is a natural, what I would call an older algorithm, natural use of auto-tune achieved by Waves Tune. And what I want you to do as I'm playing this is I want you to just listen to both the type of tuning that's happening between vocals as well as the texture of auto-tune that's happening. And we're not going to go through the full song, we're just going to show you guys the tuning. Singing his love like an XO. Used to ride with dad on the metro. That was before I had kicks that were retro. Again, older algorithm of tuning and natural, more on the natural side of tuning. I went by, had to let go. Clear as day, faded out like an echo. I just want to be special. Yeah. So I fell in love with the metronome. Thank God every day I found you. Yeah. How it could have ended, only God knows. Thanking God, thanking God, 'cause he made me love. Okay, now the next song we're going to listen to is a song of mine called Why Do You Love Me? And this is what I would categorize as new algorithm autotune. That is a more refined take on the algorithm, the equation of how autotune is achieved. So this is a modern algorithmic autotune, still natural though. So the first one was old algorithm natural. This is new algorithm natural.
I loved your.
Okay, so what you guys will start to notice about that is there isn't quite a difference in terms of the natural sound, but there becomes a difference in texture and character. So Why Do You Love Me has more of a smoother transition between notes, and it has a different thickness of texture of tuning that creates a more modern euphoric sound, whereas Learn Love is more of a generic natural route of singing, and they both kind of achieve different things. One's more of a conservative studio mix, and the other one is more of an experimental modern take. Now let's move on. And the reason I'm showing you guys these is because I'm trying to train you on how to spot which plugins are responsible for certain types of auto-tuning. And the more you can kind of hear the different auto-tunes, you can start to figure out what's the best one that you should be using. Because after we listen to these, we are going to go into an example where I take one vocal and we're going to make 4 different types of signature auto-tune to it. And then we're also going to trick those out. And I want you guys to use what you're listening for in these recordings to hear exactly what I'm doing. So again, here's an example of auto-tune, which I would classify as rap soft tuning auto-tune. So this is natural soft auto-tune, new algorithm, but it's rapping and not singing. We are just putting this on the vocal for the sake of adding a auto-tune-esque texture to a vocal, not for the sake of actually tuning a vocal.
Materials, only hype about the spirit, I say go, I'm yelling clear, go, thanking God we ain't critical, we got one book, one faith, one kick, drum bass, yelling to the voice box, crack, lunch break, might just fall off the top like a pump fake, mosh pit, one take, head high, sunset. Say, I'm cracking the safe, stand back, it ain't safe. Watch me brag on the face, Fake, wait, I'm black and no cake. Bats, hand me the ball, dog, I'm back in the paint. Let it crash like a primer. Got new life and it fit like designer. Used to think it was all just a fluke. I'ma go back and I'm picking the minors. Up to the prison, I kick it to life.
So in this example, again, new algorithm type of tuning, it's really just assisting to add a vibe to the rapping, but it's not actually meant to be tuning the vocal. And so an example of this would be someone like Paris Cariz, who as of recently, he's been experimenting a little bit with his melodics, but it's very ABC level melodics. What he's mostly just doing is throwing the auto-tune fully on for the sake of texture to add character to his rapping, not necessarily to sing into. And so that's one use of auto-tune. You could use auto-tune as a rapper and put different texture onto your vocal and give it a different flavor, either on the natural side or the euphoric side, and have no intentions of tuning. The fourth example here that I wanted to show you guys was, let's see here. We're going to call this exotic tuning. Now, this is new algorithmic auto-tune through Antares. So now we're moving from Waves Tune to Antares. And this is, in the last example, we had a natural auto-tune sitting on top of rap vocals. Now we're going to have a new modern auto-tune sitting on top of rap sing-esque vocals. And what it's going to sound like is it's going to have a little bit more of a dreamy, euphoric take on a rap vocal. You know, when you have joy.
You have any joy in your life.
And that's like a huge question because that's the end goal, you know.
Yeah, swinging the chuck in it. Like 150. I see potential in all of this. Scribing it down on my knowledge list. Another baby too. But with Christ monogamous. Bring no life in my esophagus. Sweet like Babe Ruth. Everybody gotta go through it, man. That's a chop block, yeah. Hopscotch with the devil. The guy God ain't special. God was gon' let go. Ain't God ain't let go. Now we building like Lego. No more long distance like a payphone. Yeah. I'ma do it when he say so. When he left that blood on me, his case closed. Blessing coming by the case low, make his face known, yeah. He gon' get it all anyway, cause it's set in stone. Oh, is that real joy, that joy, 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 joy? First time I felt like joy, 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 joy. Come and complete me in that joy, 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 joy.
So in that chorus, that's more singing, but I wanted you to pay attention to the rapping vocals on the verse because same thing as Pump Fake, we're rapping / rap singing, but we're just throwing the auto-tune on there for the sake of giving it character. And the difference in character between Pump Fake's verse and Joy Joy's verse is Pump Fake was more natural, robotic texture to a rap vocal, whereas with this song, it was more euphoric, dreamy texture on top of a rap vocal. Two different feels. And that's helpful to understand because if you're wanting to just add that more robotic, dry texture to your vocal, you're going to go with something like a Waves tune. Whereas if you're trying to get that euphoric texture, you might go with a Vocal Synth 2 or an Antares Auto-Tune, and that would actually be the better choice for you. Excuse me. Next, we have number 5. We're almost done here. So number 5, I would classify as exotic singing tuning. So we're messing with Antares Auto-Tune. We're adding the dreamy texture of Auto-Tune, and we are pitch correcting fully. So this is going to be an exotic. We're on the exotic side of the spectrum now, and now we're getting to where we're trying to leave Earth with the texture and with the pitch correction.
Like fog is surround me, surround me. Drip feel good, it ain't cloudy. Ring at the heaven, it ain't Audi. Swimming in the middle of nowhere, but he found me. I can feel it as soon as I touch down. Yeah, shine inside, outside, I ain't even got a bus down. Had me feeling like a kid. On 17, used to take a bus route. I ain't ever care in the world. Wake up every morning like, what now? It's a table for 10. I only buy 2. I won't bring my friends. Come follow the truth. The harvest is big. The followers few.
The ways could be death. I'm talking to you. Okay, so euphoric on top of singing vocals, tricked out. Now the last example we're going to do is new algorithm based off the old algorithm. So we're dealing with a more advanced type of tuning, but we're staying natural. So we're going more robotic tuning as opposed to euphoric tuning, but we're still putting a modern take on it. We're just not going for the dreamy. We're going for the drier, more electronic approach to auto-tune. So it's going to be less wet. And these different types of character, some people might say, well, no, that's just the reverb. No, listen, if you listen to these two songs, there is a distinct difference. Yes, one uses a little less reverb than the other, but if you listen to the texture of auto-tune, one is going to be more metallic, more robotic, and it naturally has a drier texture. I would call it like a dry rub, whereas the other type of tuning is more of a barbecue sauce as opposed to a dry rub. So this song's called Quarantine Clean. This is what I would classify as a modern pop conservative tuning on a vocal for a natural, as natural as the tuning can get without being dreamy.
Yeah. quarantine, but I'm clean since he gave me life. Inside, outside, I'm gonna be alright. Yeah, yeah. The numbers so crazy right now. They keeping us way in the house. We ducking and dodging and we've been believing that we gonna make a way out. Feet don't just stay on the couch. I hope my feet don't run out. I ball in my bank account. They never go way down. So I turn the faith up loud. I grow in the knowledge of him. I might just go show me a hymnal. I'm flicking through gospels a Kindle. You might need his grace in your life. It's a quarantine, but I'm clean since he gave me life. Inside, outside, I'm gonna be alright.
Okay, so that's a more robotic use of auto-tune, but a modern pop take on it without trying to make it so dreamy and in a whole nother space. So notice, a subtle texture-based difference between Maui and Quarantine. Okay, so we've now seen 6 different uses for auto-tune. We've seen the conservative algorithm. We've seen the conservative algorithm, both natural and euphoric. We've seen 2 different uses of auto-tune applied on rap vocals. And we've seen modern algorithmic takes on both a natural and a euphoric sounding vocal. Okay, so now there's just a couple of things I want to touch on for maybe a couple of minutes right before we jump into this example that I have from our boy 350, where we'll actually create these in real time, and I'll show you exactly how I'm able to achieve this. But a couple of things that I think are all the difference between how you're creating your auto tunes and how you're using those in your DAW. There's a couple different things to consider because there's a couple different schools of thought in terms of best plugins to use, how to use them, and how to overcome some of your issues that you're having. So we'll go over the knobs and whatnot, but one of the schools of thought is that you should have an auto tune that plays in your headphones while you're recording. And the reason for this is because when you can hear in your ears what the auto-tune is actually doing to your vocal, it'll encourage you to kind of be freed up from thinking about tuning more so when you're singing and focus more on vibe and feel. Now, one of the things that interrupts that claim or that attempt is the fact that a lot of people's interfaces in their DAWs are not set up on the correct latencies. So one of the things that you'll get a lot from people who record is, hey, when I put my headphones on, my auto tune is delayed. It's not in real time and it's throwing me off, which can be a problem. So if you're a person who, when you put auto tune in your headphones, it is not in real time tuning, you're going to have some struggles, and I would highly encourage at that point then that you turn off the auto tune in your headphones. And the second major issue that I see with some people when they have auto tune on in their earphones is just the simple fact that if you're not a trained singer, it's very easy to get tone deaf. And what I mean by this is, you ever tried to put your earphones on like this and sing vocals in key? That muffling that you have over your tone may make your sound a little bit uncomfortable to the point where you're singing slightly above, below, or flat to key. And a lot of people don't realize this. It's kind of like the same effect as when you're rapping. A lot of people, when they put their headphones on and both earphones are on, they'll actually rap way louder than if they had one ear slit and they could actually hear themselves. And that actually changes the entire performance because now you've got more amplitude, which means you're going to have a different level of character, different performance because of breathing issues and stuff like that. Similarly with auto-tune, when you throw both earphones on and you can't quite fully hear your singing because you're thinking about it, then you're hearing it in your headphones, and you can easily go tone deaf if you're not a really good trained singer, because a lot of people sing from their gut, and that's how they determine the keys that they're in and hitting the notes that they're in, is by squeezing their stomach to achieve and make sure that they are pitch perfect. So, like for instance, with me, I never put auto-tune in my earphones because I would rather slide my ear So I can hear in real time. I know it's 100% zero latency because I can hear myself, and I have more control over hearing the way I'm actually singing. Now, the disadvantage to that is I don't get the benefits of hearing myself tuned by the auto-tune until after the recording. I have to play it back to see what the auto-tune did. But, you know, I've been singing for a very long time now, and I know what the auto-tune is going to do, and it's very rare that I'll record expecting something to be tuned and then go back and realize it's not tuned. Unless I'm really trying to hit something dynamic, for the most part, I have no problem playing it back. Now, I will say this. I'm a punch recorder, so I'm recording every half bar. So I'm able to play back each individual note, so it benefits me to just slide an ear and to get more in touch with my natural tone and to play back each note to see what the tuning is doing. Whereas if you're singing for 4 bars or more through a whole verse, you're going to want to hear that in real time because you have more sentences to get out and more sentences that you have to sound check while you're recording as well. So if you're somebody who doesn't punch record short sentences and whatnot, I would also highly recommend you put the auto-tune live in your earphones while you're recording. Just make sure that there's no latency when you actually print that stuff out. So another thing is when you have the auto-tune in your ears pre-equipped, you also are printing that auto-tune onto the vocal, whereas I like to add the plugin onto the vocal so I can subtract and add the auto-tune and not just print it into the take and not be able to manipulate it at that point anymore with a plugin. So those are all just things to consider with that. Let me look in the note sheet here if there's anything else I missed. So yeah, lag can really affect how it comes out, being tone deaf. Okay, now there's one more thing I wanted to mention, and then we're going to dive right into this example. So let's pull up these plugins really quick. So I'm going to pull up Antares Auto-Tune, and I'm also going to pull up Waves Tune here. And I'm actually going to have to raise my glasses here. For those of you who don't know why I wear glasses, I have so many lights in here controlling different brightness levels, and so my shades help me kind of lower how bright it is, whereas you guys kind of need the brightness to be able to not look like I'm in a dungeon. But there's just a couple things I wanted to talk about on the actual panel of these auto-tunes. Now, I'm utilizing Auto-Tune EFX Plus. It's the next level above the entry-level auto-tune. And the thing that I love about this auto-tune is very simple controls. How your tuning speed, how fast it's tuning the vocal, humanize how natural and how smoothed out it is, knowing what key you're in, and you're usually 9 times out of 10 in a minor scale. So as long as you got this set up to minor, this is really easy to do because we're going to sing an example vocal here to this beat. Let me show you something. Yo, 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 testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let's see what beat we're working with. Okay, so I'm just going to sing random notes. Yo, yo, yo,
Action, with no satisfaction. Bum, 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 no passion. Nothing up like a napkin. Banana, yeah, yeah. Banana, na, 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 na. Banana, yeah, yeah. Banana, na, 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 na,
yeah, check it out. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, there's an example of a vocal, right? And I don't need to worry about what key it's in because I'm just going to pull up auto-tune. I'm going to tune it the heck out. And I'm going to start in alto. It's pretty much a good safe bet. And so we've got auto-tune turned all the way up. And I'm just going to cycle C through B until I know what key I'm in. Now, I know what key I'm in because I've been using the plugin long enough, and after cycling through these, you know kind of how it manipulates. But let's just pretend I'm a total newbie, and I want to find out which key I'm in.
Action, with no satisfaction. Bum, 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 no passion.
Sounds decent.
Up like a napkin. Banana, yeah, yeah. Banana, na, na, na,
Nope.
na, na. Banana, yeah, yeah. Banana, na, 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 yeah, yeah. no satisfaction. Bum bum bum, no passion. Nothing up like a napkin. Banana, yeah, banana, na 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 na. Banana, yeah, banana.
Okay, so we know it's an E sharp minor. We literally just keep going down through these until it sounds good. Now, I will say this, if you find a key that you think it is, definitely go down 2 keys to see, because you'll notice the further down in the key range you go, the little bit more flexibility with depth you have. So like if I have a simple set of notes that I think is in C sharp, I'll leave it there if it sounds good. But if I start getting dynamic on my singing, when I start hitting high notes and stuff out of the range, I might actually need to go down to E sharp, which falls in line with the scale, so to speak, and it'll be C sharp with a wider range of versatility, and it'll be able to capture all those note corrections, etc. So we found out that it's E sharp. Don't make the mistake of knowing what key the beat is in and then tuning your vocals to this key. Like, let me give you an example. If somebody tells you that this beat is in C sharp, do not set your auto tune to C sharp and call it a day. Because if you're not a trained singer, especially in this climate of music, you might not be singing in C sharp. In fact, most of the time, you won't be singing in C sharp. So if somebody tells you that the key of the beat, completely just use that as a frame of reference. So what I would do is I would start with C sharp where the beat is. I'll sing however the vocal feels to me, not even caring about key. And then I'll go in and say, okay, does this sound good on C sharp? No? Well, okay, I'm going to continue to go down the scale, because it's very possible that you could have a beat that's in C sharp, but you're actually singing in E sharp. Make sense? Okay, so the functionality here is simple. I want to just show you guys how to use the plugins. So the thing that I love about Antares is this patches group down here. You can preset patches on top of the effects that range from vocoding to pitch changing to tube amplifying to filtering to duetting. And so one really nice mic preamp that I like on here is multi-effects templates. This throat mutate right here. This is warm, this is soft, but just throwing that on will instantly add warmth to the vocal.
Action, with no satisfaction. Bum bum bum, no passion. Nothing up like a napkin. Banana, yeah.
So anyway, so these presets equip your microphone to basically have different attributes on the ad-lib level or on the lead mic level that, again, help you to create signature and character on top of the auto-tuning, which is adding character. So there just begins to have a little bit more layers of what Antares can do. But say you didn't even want to use these. And mind you, each preset that you pick, you can come over here and manipulate them. So you can click mutate and move it on this spectrum. You can click pitch and throat, move it around and watch your vocal change. You can turn certain ones off and certain ones on. So that's just a really cool way, simple way for you to add different types of experimentation to your vocals and do that. Another way is just to attack the retune speed and the humanize. So once you've set your key and you know, okay, this is what's sounding good. Now, mind you, we need to go back down to E sharp because that's what we were in. Humanize is smoothing out. Retune speed is going to be how quick the tuning is happening. So if the tuning is happening quicker, that means this knob is all the way up. So if you want it to sound more natural, you're going to lightly brace off of the tuning. So this is the basic thing that most people understand. They know, okay, if I want the auto-tune to sound stronger, I'm going to leave the knob all the way up.
No satisfaction, bum bum bum, no passion, nothing up like a napkin.
Halfway up, half the speed.
No satisfaction, bum bum.
So that's when you start to notice the difference between okay, when you go half speed, it's going to be less ding, 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 ding. It's going to be more it's going to be a little more butter because it's trying to lean more on the natural. And then the less you have it, obviously, you're going more towards your natural voice. And then when you want to smooth out the transition on top of the speed, which will cause it to sound, I would say, more natural, but a little more artificial in the sense that it's actually smoothing out and creating texture over the top of the tuning speed. That's when you're going to play with this humanize.
No passion.
So you'll notice as you start to raise this, the vocal will get actually a little bit more robust.
No satisfaction. No passion. Like a napkin.
Okay, so I don't really want to get into the depth of retune speed and humanize. You're playing with the tune speed and humanize until you dial in. You're playing with the presets here. Now, here's the next step that most people screw up royally. So never be afraid when you have tune settings that you kind of like but you're not sold. Never be afraid to go to this stinking mix knob, this wetness knob, because right now, auto-tune is fully on. The more you back off the wetness knob, the less of the plugin is activated. So if you need to shy back, and it's never a bad idea to shy back from this mix knob and dial in. So for instance, there's going to be 2 instances on Waves Tune that we do here that I want to show you. So similarly to auto-tune, we've got the retune speed right here. We've got our speed knob. And then we have our note transition knob, which is pretty much just humanized with a little less texture. Ignore this side because this is the Travis Scott and the Post Malone vibrato that you can add to your vocals. I recommend you stay away from that for now. But you've got the same thing. You set up your key. You're always pretty much going to be safe bet going in natural minor. And then you're just going through which one sounds good until it changes it. Now, until we actually do this with 350's vocal, I'm not going to show you how to exactly do it. But once you set this, you have a wetness knob here. 100% correction, or you can back off. And the more you back off this, the more it goes towards your original vocal. So there could be 2 cases here. One case could be you tune it to the point where you like how it's tuned, but it's too robotic, but you don't like how it sounds when you back off the speed and the note transition. So you don't want to change these settings, but you do want to back off the vocal somehow. There's instances where you actually want to back off of the wetness knob as opposed to turning the speed and note transition down. And that's another area where people go too crazy, because typically what winds up happening is you become one of those people who would rather settle for having the drier, more robotic auto-tune because you don't like how it sounds when you turn down the speed and note transition. But what you wind up having is a vocal that's tuned too much. So mess with that wetness knob more. Okay. So now that I've showed you what these things can do, you're going to see the texture difference, and we're going to mess with 350's vocal, and we're going to just start to create different auto-tunes. We're going to start just using auto-tunes, these 2 right here. Then we're going to graduate, and I'm going to show you some quick tips and tricks on how to add layers to your auto-tune to create different types of signatures, ranging from reverbs to distortions to... I need to sign into my iCloud to get my note sheet. Hey, man, we don't got a script here, bro. We're not on Twitch, Dre. We're on YouTube. YouTube.com/conscience hip hop. Conscience hip hop on YouTube. We're live. Okay. So, yeah, so we're going to mess, after we do just the tuning, we're going to tune natural to artificial on 4 vocals. Then we're going to trick them out by messing with guitar pedals, soft and long short and long tail reverbs, parallel auxing the auto tune in as opposed to slapping it right on the vocal. Then we're going to mess with some distortions. Then we're gonna do a quick Q&A at the end for anything that you guys would want clarified. So during this process, I'm not gonna talk. I'm just gonna create and label these different vocals. And once I'm done creating them, then I'm gonna talk through the difference between all of them. But right now I want you to just watch and see exactly what I'm doing with this plugin, because this is gonna be ways you wanna incorporate texture, tuning, etc. So without further ado, watch me do what I do. If you have any questions, feel free to hit up the chat.
Bum bum bum, no passion, nothing up like a net. I don't got no guidance, never on the sideline.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Y'all gonna make me take my glasses off. I don't got no guidance, never on the sideline. Real quick, I just want to mention that we're just going to do a very quick freestyle based treatment on these vocals just to make sure that everything's balanced so you guys can hear the difference in these auto tunes smoothly. So when you see me whipping through this, this is not the process, but this is the speed run process.
I don't got no guidance, never on the sideline. In the cut, always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. rings, ay, laughing on my team. We do not back down, this is on my team. Riding from my city, whoa, come and get me if you know. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know anymore. You don't even ride for the boys. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a toy. Yeah,
So one thing I noticed very quickly is I should be separating the two vocalists here, but he rendered me out a copy with two different vocalists on one take. So we're just gonna slap box a setting, but it'll probably affect one a lot differently than the other, but that's okay.
I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a toy. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my team. We do not back down, this is on my team. Riding from my city, whoa, come and get me if you know. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know anymore. You don't even ride for the boys. Ride around the city with the toy. You don't even go for the love.
Yeah, I've been 3 for real. I got a beat to kill. Living on E for real. I gotta gleam. I gotta eat for real. Yeah. Go, Febber, got my drip down, got a stylist. 8-3 on the east side, I got my tribe lit. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, you ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a toy. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my teeth. We do not back down, this is on my team. Riding from my city, whoa, come and get me if you know.
I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place.
I don't even know anymore. You don't even ride for the boys. Ride around the city with the toy. You don't even go for the love.
Yeah, I've been 3 for real. I got a beat to kill. Living on E for real. I gotta gleam. I gotta eat for real. Yeah. Go, Febber, got my drip down, got a stylist. 8-3 on the east side, I got my tribe lit. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the gate. Always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a torch. Yeah, you didn't even go for the Lord. Life in all my rings, ay, life in all my teeth. I don't got no guidance, never think. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Been know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Life in all my rings, ay, life in all my teeth. We do not back down, this is on my team. Riding from my city, whoa. Come and get me if you been know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Life in all my rings, ay, life in all my teeth. We do not back down, this is on my team. Riding from my city, whoa. Come and get me if you know. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know anymore.
All right, now we're ready. Let's tune. Now we have to listen to this all the way through twice to be able to capture this with waves tune. Those of you who don't know, you start from the beginning. Let me go ahead and arm this stupid waves rewire so that we can mess with this. So we have to track this vocal for it to capture. So it's gonna write all of these vocals.
I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes, they do. Mendoza, yes to your question.
Never think, never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't got no guidance.
Oh shoot.
Never think, never on the sideline.
No.
Always with the rah,
Come on.
yeah. I don't even know you no more.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys.
You ain't even ride for the boys. Riding around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Life in all my rings, ay, life in all my teeth. We do not back down, this is on my team. Riding from my city, whoa. Come and get me if you know. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know anymore. You don't even ride for the boys. Ride around the city with the toy.
Yeah, if you use real time, it's gonna be just a little bit different, but they function the exact same.
Living on E for real. I gotta gleam, I gotta eat for real. Yeah. Go fever, got my drip down, got a stylist. 8-3 on the east side, I got my tribe lit. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't got no guidance, never think. Never on the sideline, in the kite. Always with the rah, never sing. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't got no guidance, never think. never on the sideline. In the cut, always with the rah, never sink. All gold, everything, every place, yeah.
Okay, so now that it recorded everything, now here's where we start to manipulate. Now without having to do this on this, I'm going to do it the fast way so we're not taking up an entire night of streaming. So I'm going to turn off Waves Tune for a second. I'm going to crank up Antares and I'm going to find which key he's singing in.
Riding from laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my team. We don't
Never on the sideline. I don't got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink. All gold, everything, every place. I don't got no guidance.
So here we go.
I don't got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink. All gold, everything. I don't got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut.
What do you know? It's in E sharp, what we found last time.
All gold, everything. I don't got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline.
Now, even though there's rapping, we're going to leave these auto tunes on because you'll get to see all the different character types. So we should have known it was E sharp because that's where I was singing in earlier. But I just wanted to make sure because they could have been singing in a different key. So now that we know it's in E sharp minor, let's go over to Waves Tune. We're going to select all. I already forgot what the dang key was. E sharp minor. Okay. Select all. E. Natural minor.
I don't got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never.
Okay, so this might be a little bit different on Waves
I
Tune.
don't got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink.
D sharp
All
for Waves
gold,
Tune.
everything, every place.
yeah, 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 yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys.
Got no.
Okay, so we've got our Waves Tune aggressive cranked all the way up, full correction. We are going to go down to this Waves Tune, print that because it's the same vocal. We're going to have a soft use.
Got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink. All gold, everything, every place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys. Round around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my teeth. We don't know.
Okay, so we got our Waves Tune aggressive. Let's do our Waves Tune soft.
Got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink. All gold, everything, every place.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, now let's get our Antares thick aggressive.
Got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink. All gold, everything, every place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys. Round around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my teeth. We don't knock back down. This is on my team. Riding from my city. Whoa, come if you know.
I don't got no guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline.
Oh.
In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink. All guidance. Never think. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah,
team. We do not back down. This is on my team. Riding from my city. Whoa, come and get me if you know.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to just go. We've got a soft reverb to help the auto-tune tuck into the record a little bit more. When you put padding in front of the record, it automatically pushes the character of the auto-tune to tuck more. And we've got them labeled here. So with the natural waves tune, we have 4 milliseconds of transition, 12 milliseconds or 4 milliseconds of speed, 12 milliseconds of transition, full correction on. That means 100% wetness. So it's going to be doing very fast correcting, and this is going to be the true texture of waves tune because it's cranked all the way up. Let's listen to it. We're going to listen through these just to hear the character difference of it cranked up versus softly used, in addition to the fact that it has its own algorithm as a tuner.
I don't got no guidance, never on the sideline, in the cut, always with the rah, never sink, I'll go to everything, every place.
Yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Ride around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my team. We do not back down, this is on my team. Riding from my city, whoa, come and get me if you know.
I don't got no guidance, never on the sideline, in the cut, always with the rah, never sink, I'll go to everything. I don't got no guidance, never on the sideline, in the cut, always with the rah, never sink, I'll go to everything, every place.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying to give you guys a little bit more fullness of sound. So what you notice there is thick, aggressive auto-tune, but again, it's not that euphoric. It's going to be more on the natural robotic side of waves tune. So some would say this is a little bit less of a modern take. Okay, so y'all are just chit-chatting. Okay, cool. So I'm going to play this one more time with the levels a lot more plush, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, I've been 3 for real. I got a beat to kill. Living on E for real. I got a gleam. I got to eat for real. Yeah. Go February, got my drip down. Got a stylist. 8-3 on the east side. I got my tribe lit. I don't got no guidance. Never on the sideline. In the cut. Always with the rah, never sink. I'll go to everything. Every place.
Now we're going to listen to a softer use of waves tune that should be even more natural with the conservative auto-tune.
Guidance, never
and we're gonna switch in between both of them.
Guidance, never on the sideline, in the cut, always with the rah, never sink. I'll go to everything, every place.
Yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys.
So notice that metallic residue. The more aggressive you go with waves tune, you're gonna hear you're gonna hear a metallic fragment of the tuning actually happening. So the more you crank up waves tune, the more robo it gets, but even the texture of the robotic is less modern because it doesn't have a very satisfying texture to that metallic sound. So some would say that the softer use of waves tune is better because you don't pick up that metallic residue. Now let me explain something because I didn't touch on this yet. This is extremely important. If you came to this stream for mixing, this is extremely important. There is a difference between a residue and character. Residue is something that is a product of using the plugin no matter what. You don't have control over this aspect of the auto-tune's character. Meaning, when I apply waves tune, the more I use it, I'm going to get metallic fragments of metal. Listen to this. Z, 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 z. Listen to this.
I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys.
Do you hear how when it gets to more of those you hear that underbelly of metal? It's like a vibration. It's like a sheen, where it's not quite handling the tuning as well. That is a residue of the plugin. There's nothing you can do about that. Whereas if we go over to auto-tune's aggressiveness, let's hear the underbelly of its residue from the algorithm.
I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys.
So notice the residue is still there for Antares, but it's much more discreet and better handling of the vocal. So when you're dealing with a bad singer or an average singer or a guy who's changing multiple key notes in his session, Antares is going to handle those weaknesses better than waves tune. So the solution for the guy using the waves tune here is to go to the softer use.
I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys.
So little more natural, you can hear that he's not really a singer, but maybe we can jack this up from 50% wetness, whereas the other one was 100, to 75. We're not going to mess with the speed and the transition because we like the more natural sound. We just want it to have more pitch correction than like the sheen tuning. So let's see if we can still get the same auto tuning, but a little less of that metal under the belly by changing the wetness tab as opposed to the speed.
I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys.
So that's a little less discreet in pulling it off. So when you're using waves tune, if you're trying to hit different notes and you notice you're getting that residue, so again, let me just elaborate on that. Residue comes with the packaging of the auto tune. It's that sound of auto-tune, that character of auto-tune that isn't a product of what it's intended for. It's a product of the algorithm and how the algorithm is trying to use equations to create auto-tune. Now, character is the intentional algorithmic equations, the intentional equations that each company makes in a plugin to create more to the vocal than just the tuning itself. It's the type of tuning and the smoothness of the tuning and the shape of the tuning and other features. So for instance, when Antares decides to put these patches here, that's going to add these are character touches. But when you hear the no anymore in that grit, that's the unintentional product of the algorithm. They didn't mean for it to sound that crappy. It's just it was a poorer made algorithm. So know the difference, because some people buy certain plugins just for the crappiness of the auto-tune. Like it might be a rock vocal that they just want to hear some more metal under. Some people might be wondering why their auto-tune doesn't sound like everybody else's. Well, it might literally just be because you're using a different auto-tune, and you'll never get your... Listen, no plugin out there is going to sound like Antares' auto-tune. It not only has character shapers, but their algorithm is not only superb, but entirely different than all these other algorithms. So stop trying to get Antares' sound with other plugins. If it's a money issue, then maybe the way you attack it is what we're going to do in a few seconds, which is where you pair something like a distortion, a saturation, or a guitar pedal on top of the auto-tune to give it more character closer to something you're trying to achieve while you save up money to actually get that plugin. But just note the difference between residue is unintentional stuff left by the algorithm. Character is the intentional stuff left behind by the algorithm. So so we went through the Waves Tunes aggressive auto-tune and their soft auto-tune. Now we're gonna go to Antares's thick aggressive auto-tuning.
Yeah, I don't even know you no more.
This is all the way up.
For the boys, ride around the city with a torch. Yeah, you didn't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my team. We do not back down. This is on my team. Riding from my city. Whoa, come and get me if you know. I don't got no guidance. Never think, never on the sideline. In the kite, always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know anymore.
So very dreamy, very euphoric, that classic Antares auto-tune character that you're looking for. You know, your Travis Scott, your Post Malone, and all this stuff. Now, let's go to a soft use of Antares's plugin. So we should still be looking for euphorics, but just much lighter.
In the kite, always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know you no more.
Now let's switch between
You
them.
ain't even ride for the boys. Ride around the city with a torch.
So notice that's still tuning, but it's leaving a little bit of that natural sound out. So it kind of just sounds more like the singer is actually hitting the note and kind of falling off the note intentionally, as opposed to Antares fully correcting it, showing that there is actual correction going on.
Even know you never think, never on the sideline. In the kite, always with the ride. I don't got no guidance, never think.
See, now watch this. You're going to hear, wow, wow, now, no, no, no. It's going to be a lot more hard.
I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline. In the kite, always with the ride, never sink. I'll go with everything, every.
Subtle differences, but make a huge difference in terms of shaping how you want your auto-tune to sound. Okay, so this is the foundation. This is how we're going to end this stream, is talking about the tricks and tips and taking any Q&A, which I'm sure that there's probably zero Q&A because I've already exhausted you guys. So let's wrap this up with about 10 minutes of different ways to trick out your auto-tune. So I'm going to mess with Antares' fully aggressive. And what we're going to do is we're going to get a distortion. We're going to get a, what do I have here on my notes? So we're going to use a guitar pedal. We're going to try to, instead of slapping the auto-tune right on the vocal chain, we're going to try to parallel compress, or we're going to try to aux the auto-tune, which basically just means that we're going to take the original vocal and blend, which we really don't have to do that with either of these because we have the wetness knob. But if your auto-tune didn't have the wetness knob, you could send the auto-tune signal into the vocal and blend it in a lot easier. So we actually don't have to do that because we have a wetness knob. Let me see what else we have. Okay, yeah, so guitar pedals and distortion. We already have our reverbs, so we're not really, you know, you can play with different vocal character by messing with reverbs, but we're getting pretty late here and I don't want to give away all of my tricks and tips. I've already left out some key things, but so let's just mess with distortion. So for this, we're going to pull out Head Crusher for the distortion, and for the amp, we are going to simply use the GTR. Actually, you know what? Let's use Stomp 6. I'm fine with that. I ain't even mad at it. So let's do... You know what? It'll be easier for you guys if I just use the amp. Okay. So now we're going to take our auto tunes and we're going to plug in gritty distortion and a guitar pedal. to shape each one's tuning. So now watch this. So we're going to take the thick, aggressive auto-tune. Now watch what happens when I start blending distortion and grit to create more signature and character to the vocals.
I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the cut. I always with the rah, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the board. I don't wanna see you with a torch. I ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, laughing on my teeth. We do not back down.
Now watch this. Now that we have the distortion, now we're going to blend it to taste just on the underbelly of what auto-tune is doing to create a little bit more sauce and grit. So this is still electronic, but this has nothing to do with tuning.
I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the cut. I always with the rah, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the board. I don't wanna see you with a torch. I ain't even go for the Lord.
So if you want a hardcore rock and roll vibe, you can
I don't got no guidance, never think.
Now you might be like, oh my gosh, that sounds disgusting. Well, I've got the wetness knob at 3 and I'm jamming the distortion, but we can crank it down so it's more subtle and I'll show you.
I don't got no guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the cut. I always with the rah, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. Yeah. I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the board. I'm around to see you with a torch.
Now watch this. Now watch. That's such a subtle change. It makes it a little more gritty. Now we can shape it by shaping the tone. So we can make it really bright and edgy, or we can make it dark and moody. So watch this.
Guidance, never
We're not even messing with the wetness anymore. We're messing with tone.
guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the cut.
So that's a very bright use of distortion.
Guidance, never think, never on the sideline, in the cut.
We've only got it being added to this vocal 4%. But watch the difference between it. Watch
Never
this.
on the sideline,
Let me mute it in and out.
guidance, never think,
Buttery,
never on
smooth,
the sideline,
gritty. Ready?
in the cut. I always with the rah, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know anymore. That thing, every place. I don't even know anymore.
See, one's smooth and sexy. The other one,
Thing, every place. I don't even know anymore.
you hear that little underbelly. It almost sounds like a guitar pedal, but it's gritty. Now let's see how it sounds dark.
Thing, every place. I don't even know anymore. You don't even ride for the boys. Right around the city with the tour.
Now check that out. Now that is smoother but darker, but it adds grit to the vocal without it sounding too high-end, sheeny. Watch how I mute and unmute this. So, muted.
Thing, every place. I don't even know anymore.
So buttery, smooth, now gritty.
Thing, every place. I don't even know anymore.
You just hear that right under the vocal.
Thing,
Signature. Moving along. Now we're going to mess with the guitar pedal.
thing. Yeah, I don't even know you no more. You ain't even ride for the boys. Ride around the city with a torch. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, laughing on my teeth. We do not back down. This is on my team. Riding from my city. Whoa, come and get me if you know. I don't got no guidance. Never think, never on the sideline, in the cut. I always with the rah, never sink. I'll go with everything, every place. I don't even know
Now again, we have not messed with the wetness yet. We're going to fade it into taste. So once we find the one that we like the tone to, then we're going to turn it off completely and mess with this fader to slowly add it so it's just subtly adding character under the auto-tune we've chosen.
I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys. Round around city with a toy.
Okay, so now we're messing with that rock vibe. So now let's blend the rock vibe in.
I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys. Round around the city with a toy. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord.
You hear that? You hear that little guitar happening in the very faint background? Listen to this.
I don't even know you no more.
So now with this distortion, you actually have a guitar signal playing guitar. Your vocal is generating a guitar residue that is separate from your vocal and is adding character. Listen to this. It's so faint, but let me know in the chat if you hear this.
I don't even know you no more. You ain't even right for the boys. Round around the city with a toy. Yeah, you ain't even go for the Lord. Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my teeth. We do not back down.
It's like almost like an echoing guitar. And I want to show you an example of a case where even I did this. So I have a song called Jet Lag, and I actually used this same technique. I want you to listen to this. This is really neat. So check this out. So same thing. Listen to what just happened here.
Laughing on my rings, ay, laughing on my teeth. We do not back down. This is on my.
So it's almost like somebody's playing an edgy guitar behind that auto-tune. Now, I did this to the extreme. I used this amp and actually created a more amplified guitar, and so you'll hear at the end of this song, it sounds like somebody's coming in and playing a guitar, when in reality, it's actually just me doing random ad-libs on the microphone. So actually, let me pull up Jet Lag. I want to actually show you this because, and then we'll wrap up. But this is really neat. This is how you discover something completely new, and like, it's awesome. So with Jet Lag. Okay, so now check this out. My voice has now been turned into a guitar. So this is the actual recorded vocal that I did. Sounds ridiculous, right? Now watch what we actually created. Listen to this. Those guitar amp sounds is my vocal generating these. So, watch how this changes my entire character of my song. It sounds like I have a guitar soloist playing at the end of the song. So I say that to say, you know, and we'll just end it there. But what I'm trying to show you guys is that, bro, most people, when they open auto-tune, whatever one they have, they don't know the character it produces. They don't know the residue it produces. and they barely even know how to tune the vocal properly based off of their goals. They're just slapping on some settings and they're just picking which one feels the best. And the problem with that is you have absolutely no control over what's going on, and you cannot create signature. Or the signature that you create 9 times out of 10, 90% of the rest of the world using that same plugin is going to have the exact same type of character. Listen, you can only sing so much. And most of these guys are untrained singers using autotune, including myself. So you're not going to sing anything special into this microphone that's going to give you signature and sauce. I don't care what beat you pick. I don't care what notes you're hitting. I don't care what you're saying. If you don't know what the plugin does, how it treats the vocals, and the other tips and tricks that you can pull out of a hat to add to the autotune, you will not, I repeat, you will not create signature with autotune. Now, inversely, I have showed you just in this one example how knowing what the autotune is doing can assist you in making 4 basic, just from 2 plugins, 4 basic types of soft tuning and hard tuning. I've showed you presets in the plugin to give it signature. I've showed you ways of attacking the wetness meter as opposed to the transition speed of how hard things are tuning. So 2 different ways of tuning. And then I've showed you tips and tricks of distortions in guitar pedals and reverbs on how to shape your plugin. So when it's all said and done, you can utilize softness and wetness knob of the plugin, the type of plugin, the speed of how the plugin's being used, any presets that come with it, different types of reverb plugins to have signature with how much air and space the plugin has, different levels of distortion, different levels of guitar pedals. You can parallel compress. You can literally take one plugin and create 20 different signatures, sauce characters, and textures of that autotune for a single vocal, which means that me compared to the guy picking up the same plugin, if they're on Antares with me, I can create 50 different vocal types on one song. Whereas that person, if he's just playing with the tune speed and the humanize, he is just going to sound like everybody else who has access to that plugin. So what does that mean? That means whether you're a singer or not, the more you know about the plugin and the more you know how to kind of grandma's cooking your way around the plugin by additional plugins, the quicker you can dial in new creativity with the plugin that ultimately creates signature. Because everybody's using autotune. Everybody has Antares. Everybody has Wavestune. Everybody has vocal synth. Everybody has Ovox. Everybody has Melodyne. This is what will typically happen in your path. You have a tier of guys who sing and rap on their songs. Then the slightly more serious guy will grab $30, procrastinate for a year about what autotune they want to invest in. They might buy a new DAW that comes with it and piss around with that stock plugin, or they'll pick up a Wavestune and they'll just turn it on and they'll either love it or they'll never touch autotune again because of how that plugin made them feel and how quick they were able to use it. But mind you, if you're buying autotune for $30, how innovative are you actually going to get if you don't fully understand the materials and make much of a cheap plugin? So then you have this upper tier of intermediate, which is people who've spent a little bit of money on tuning, don't really study the plugin entirely, but they sound better than average because they've invested in a plugin, right? But then you have this upper echelon tier of people who get the money to buy the more expensive auto-tune plugins, your Ovox, your Melodyne, your Vocal Synth 2, your auto-tune, your Antares auto-tune. And most people, even when they get to that level and they get into that advanced tier of auto-tuning, they don't even study the plugin. There's people using $500 versions of auto-tune and they still only mess with the retune speed and transition. They don't put in presets. They don't manually change notes. They're not adding distortions or guitar pedals or different reverbs. They're literally just turning up the retune speed and the transition speed and setting the key. That's what 90% of the game, even at the advanced tier, is doing. So there's this crazy amount of space for people to actually learn their plugin, whether it's the cheap one or the expensive one, and actually innovate some incredibly new sounds that no one's ever heard before. So whether you have the cheap plugin or the more expensive auto-tune or the stock auto-tune, you should still be able to create, ideally, like 20 to 50 different types of tuning. And then what will happen is when you play with those, that's why I was able to show you 6 different auto-tunes, at the beginning of the stream. When you can cycle through 20 different auto-tunes, now you're in a position where you can pick the top 3, the top 5 that you pair the most well with, and you can brand 3 to 5 completely different vibes and pick those vibes based off the song. Now you've branded all different types of subgenres within your genre, and now people literally come to you to get a certain vibe that nobody else can create. And that's essentially what I've done with my recent music, because now I'm creating so many different vibes. Just listen to these vibes. And I'm not bragging here. I'm truly not. Just listen to, based off what I've shown you tonight, listen to the different textures and uses of autotune. It's not all the same. And then we're going to call it quits. So
they don't understand us, no. Yeah, we been through a lot. Dirt from the bags of the rinse on the pot. But you reap what you sow, so we get what we got. We put it all together, we gon' get figured out. We deserve hell, cause we sinned a lot. So we breath. Dark boy. God, I want you on display. Pressure that move, yeah. Ducking, I'm running from me. You get disgusted when you don't see something you need. Pass away. I'm in a little more. God, I want you on display. Yeah. And I'm more than high. I wish you could taste it. Come see more than life. I can't live borderline. Cause I'm a foreigner. And I'm not torn to the side. Want me to draw a line. So I'm not walking blind. But my man, I'ma move. Pussy your work. So I got tools. If you got life, what can you lose? Lose. Just when it started, I had to switch it like a DJ. So many parallels, started like a freeway. So many. Bless your seat, need for speed, ecstasy, LOV. I could run away in this evergreen.
I love Dior.
You running it, you running it, yeah. Okay, yeah. If you don't got smoke, you might be dry. Yeah, don't see beef, you a side. Just in the thrill, I'm the team. Son of God, you made me turn my neck 180. And I'm not possessed, but I might go crazy. Another morning, keep turning pages through the storming. You got my heart like a woman. Okay. Never thought it could be done. Now it's the only way I know. If you don't believe it, come see. I wanna up, yeah, cruising USA. I got the floating through your parade. Took my kicks out with grip tape. I'm up to check out fire tracking like a mixtape. Sick with the flip, they yellow, yeah, but they ain't Kincaid. I can live a life like this. Peace when I'm walking through the stages. I might need direction. I'll show you the finer things. I'll plant a seed if you can find a name. Go. We can ride it through the mileage. My face like a wide-eyed chase. I'm beside my fate in the vine. I wait till they whine like grapes. My design's divine. I'm a bright white ray. Hope in the right place where the light don't fade and the light so.
I love Dior.
just like, I'm going to eventually drop a fully comprehensive YouTube guide to this, but I almost intentionally will leave things out because it's not a matter of me not wanting to show people stuff. It's a matter of when somebody gives you a blueprint, you're very likely to stop exploring. And what I want to do is position you guys into a space where you now know what opportunities you can use. And then you actually go spend the hard work of practicing with all the tools. Because here's the thing. Every night for the last year or two, I go out between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. every single night, and I'm going to keep preaching this. And the music shows. You know, I'm in the studio every single day messing with the plugins, listening to the plugins, learning the plugins, going on YouTube and relearning things. When you get in that position, you just become dangerous. Like there's literally, I feel like where I'm at right now, there's not a lot that I can't do. And that's an amazing feeling. That's not natural. It's like, that's literally just the product of a lot of learning, a consistent schedule of practice, listening to a lot of influences, studying, and trying and failing at a lot of different stuff, and then just picking up all the gold from that and showing you guys all the gold from that. So that's what puts me into a position to be able to show you 20 songs back to back that all sound different. Like they have similar essences, like which is what branding is, but they all have different signatures and nuances in them that are the product of me having an unlimited amount of tools that I can utilize to create sound and music. So that's what I hope you guys do. I'm going to try to make a guide. I think we're shooting for 2 to 3 months from now. I'm going to sit down and make a comprehensive guide going through all the different auto tunes and helping people select what will be the best auto tune for you to use, and how to use it, and how to avoid a lot of the traps of getting stuck in the sound. But hopefully you guys felt like you learned something. I'm not going to leave this video up for more than 24 hours, so you need to either pirate it and download it off YouTube or save it because it's going off public at the end of tomorrow, because I don't just want something like this sitting out there for everybody to grab. I really wanted to make it exclusive for people who really took it seriously, because the knowledge that I'm sharing with people right now is the product of a lot of hours of hard work, and I'm kicking game and saving you guys a lot of time with your own errors of having to go through, so you can strictly get to the creative process. But this is stuff that people normally pay me for in consultations to learn how to do to improve. So I wanted to share this for free to anybody who wanted to watch it. I'll leave it up for 24 hours in case you guys want to strip the video or anything like that. Real quick, is there any questions that I did not answer that anyone was confused about before I head out? I'm going to throw a song on and go pee. Put your questions in the chat. I'll answer them really quick before I turn the stream off. Okay, excellent. So not any questions as I figured. We went through a lot. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any questions later on, feel free to DM me. You can find all of the music that I played tonight at consciencehiphop.com. That's where all of my important information and links are. I want to say thank you to everybody who's been following me on YouTube. Just in the last couple of months, I think we've grown 70 new subscribers to the YouTube channel, which is just fantastic. All of my statistics on my YouTube channel have just been absolutely insane. We've gained like another 100 followers just on my social. A lot of people have been purchasing my music, which I'm very thankful for. My algorithms are all going up on all of my platforms, and I haven't even spent a dime yet on any of my music, which is now soon about to change now that I've had some financial assistance and I've been able to cover upgrading some gear. I've also had some spare money to allocate towards a proper marketing campaign to my music. So I just want to thank all of my supporters and friends and people who are running the numbers up and helping, and it really means a lot. It's being put to good use, and I'm so appreciative for the engagement and the interaction more than the numbers. Real quick, we got a question from Wayne before we roll. What were your top resources you studied to learn the plugins? Well, I think it's important that before you study about plugins, you know your DAW. So if you're in Logic, it's really important that you find somebody who consistently puts out Logic tutorials and really understand what stock plugins they have to offer. And I would literally just research each stock plugin that your DAW provides so you fully understand what your DAW provides, because a lot of these DAWs, their stock plugins are insane. So before you even start buying new plugins, you might have a lot of stock plugins that need to be kind of your go-tos, and then go out and buy plugins that are more of your accent plugins. But I don't really go subscribe outside of somebody who releases like DAW specific videos. There's no single person that I subscribe to that will tell me about every single plugin. Really what it looks like is this. If I get Antares and I have no clue how to use it, I go and type in Antares Auto-Tune on YouTube, and I either type exactly what problem I'm having, how to use plugin, best way to use plugin, top 5 plugins, etc. And I will watch 15 videos on Antares Auto-Tune, and I will find any gold nuggets that I can on it. So literally the best way that you can research your plugins is to go type HComp, go type RComp, type in whatever the name is of your plugin, and then type how to use. Key phrases to put next to the plugin is how-tos, tutorials, tricks and tips, secrets. If you put that type of phraseology next to your plugin, I would look at the top 10 videos and just watch the ones with the most views. And when you think you know a plugin, go back on YouTube occasionally and begin to save a playlist of videos that you can come back to. So like for me, I might be studying 10 to 20 different plugin videos, or just videos on EQing and compression and dynamics and stuff like that, but I'm so tired or burnt out on one subject, so I might just spend 1 or 2 minutes on every subject and then go back and hit the unpause button to just keep it interesting for me, because sometimes I can just get super bogged down by one subject or one plugin, or I might not understand a plugin after one video and I got to come back to it. So I definitely encourage anybody, if you're in the learning phase, make your YouTube a kind of, see these folders right here, save videos into these folders and separate them based off the subject matter, and then utilize that to come back and study, and try to study at least one video a day. If you can get it to more, that's excellent. So thank you guys so much for your time. I'm going to sign off now. Again, I already thanked you guys, but thanks again for coming through, and I hope you guys have a great